Góðan daginn. Takk ykkur fyrir að mæta. Við erum að bíða eftir fyrirlesaranum. Hann er ekki ennþá búinn að ná að tengjast. Þannig að biðja ykkur að gefa okkur nokkra mínútur í viðbót. Þarna. Það ætti ekki að taka langa tíma. Þannig að eins og gefi okkur kannski 2-3 mínútur. Afsakið þetta. Ætlunin í dag var að hafa fund með aðeins öðruvísi sniði, þar sem að við erum með hann Damian sem kemur von bráðar með okkur í dag og hann er að vinna fyrir fyrirtæki sem heitir Pure Security og er í rauninni svona security pentester og hann ætlar að fara með yfir okkur í dag hvernig vondukallarnir taka saman upplýsingar hin ýmsu kerfi áður en þeir að reyna að brjótast inn. Þannig að þetta er kannski ekki beint Azure miðað en hann mun fara inn á einhverja Azure tengda öryggispælingar og síðan þarf hann að koma með nokkrar svona reynslusögur eða real life frásagnir frá innbrotum inn í fyrirtæki og ef þið eru eitthvað eins og ég þá hef ég voða gaman að því að hlusta á raunverulega frásagnir af innbrotum. Þannig að við vonum bara að hann komi núna sem fyrst. Þannig að þetta fari nú að geta byrjað hjá okkur. Þannig að gefa okkur bara nokkra viðbót.
Halló, sjá hvort þetta sé ekki koma hérna. Hérna kemur þetta, Damian kominn hérna. Damian,
Hello?
are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry for the technical issues. Finally, I got in.
You're now live. Sverrir, are you
Welcome.
there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
So,
great.
welcome, Damian.
Thank you. I'm really sorry for the delay.
No problem. I think our environment is probably just too secure.
All right, that's it. Or maybe I'm just too bad with technology.
So it's no problem. So I did a little introduction, but I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do that in Icelandic. So eins og segi, velkomin allir. Damian kominn hérna með okkur og eins og ég sagði áðan að þá verður þetta með aðeins öðru sér sniði í dag, þar sem að þetta er kannski ekki Azure miðað, en Damian ætlar að fara með okkur í gegnum í rauninni hvernig vondugallarnir finna upplýsingar kerfin áður en þeir láti skara skriða. Og svo ætlar hann að fara yfir svona real life sögur. Þannig ég ætla eiginlega bara að gefa boltan yfir á Damian. Damian, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Let me know if you can all see my screen. Is it working?
Yeah, we see the presentation.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm not sure how much I was introduced, honestly, but yeah, my name is Damian Gomez. I work for Pure Security in Australia as a managing consultant. For the last 2 years, I have been involved in this cyber threat intelligence project that we have been having there. So what I might mean to do with this presentation is a little bit to tell you what are we doing and explain a little bit more about intelligence from the offensive side, which is how threat actors use all these techniques to prepare for an attack. The same way from our side, from the defensive side, on how we can use all these things to be a step ahead a threat actor and to at least know how they operate, to understand which could be the third-party risk that intelligence will be providing to us. So to start with, I want to define a little bit of what intelligence is. And it's this. Intelligence is turning raw data into actionable decisions to improve the security posture of an organization. So that pretty much is intelligence, is understanding what's going on outside, and out of that, creating a course of action on how we can use that information to protect ourselves. Intelligence works in a cycle, which all start here in the planning and direction. When we do intelligence, we need to first understand what we are going to be looking for, what is our expectations, and which are the areas that we want to conduct this intelligence. So it all starts here with the direction in the cycle. Once we have set the direction and understanding our expectations, we move on the next bit, which is the collection of raw data. This is pretty much using different intel gathering disciplines to get a lot of data to be moved into this next step in the cycle, which is the processing of that data. I'm going to be going into this in the next slide, but pretty much this data here, when it's processed, we got information. But information by itself is not enough, so we move into the next step in the cycle, which is the analysis of this information. This analysis will produce the intelligence. This is not useful. The data is not useful. The information is not useful, but this intelligence is the analysis of that data, which will provide us the course of action to be taken. And from there, once we have the analysis of all this, when we have the intelligence, we move into the final, almost the final step, which is the dissemination. This step here is writing a report, somehow giving that intelligence back to the entity that requested it. And this is a cycle, and there is one more step here that I'm not mentioning, but this is the feedback. Because the feedback that we get once we have disseminated the intelligence, this feedback is what is going to be used to restart the cycle and to be used as the direction of the next intelligence cycle. That's why we used to say that intelligence gets better with time, because this feedback will allow us to understand better what we are looking with intelligence. And let's move on. And this is a little bit what I was talking earlier, which is the relationship of data, information, and intelligence. When we start with the collection from an environment, we are going to obtain data. This data will be processed and we'll get information. From there, there is an analysis of that information, and we get the end result, which is intelligence. Let me give you an example of this with, for example, a data breach. Let's say here in the collection, you found there is a new data breach. I don't know, LinkedIn was breached again, and the database is available to download. This is data. This is not. This is data, and this is not useful at all. But we download this data. We proceed with the collection, and we process that data. This means maybe just grabbing for your email address in that new database breach, and all the results that we get from searching into that data will be information. So at this stage, we know, okay, LinkedIn was breached, there is a database, and my company has been affected. That's information. From there, we conduct an analysis on that information. For example, let's say the data breach has the passwords available, so we are going to be analyzing which kind of password were leaked. Are those passwords old? Are they still valid? And that kind of analysis will produce intelligence, because we will know what to do with that data breach that started as just simply a data, nothing more than that. So to conduct intelligence, there are several different gathering disciplines, but when we do cyber threat intelligence, these four here are the most important ones and the ones that will provide more results for you. The first one is technical intelligence, then there is dark web intelligence, open source intelligence, and social media intelligence. Those are in my experience, the disciplines that will give you the most. Now, except for dark web intelligence, the rest, even when we denominate them in different ways, it's really all open source intelligence. There is nothing that is private here. Everything can be obtained very easily. I'm usually asked, okay, what are how do you do intelligence? What are the tools, etc.? And my first answer is, yeah, just use the browser. Intelligence is done inside the browser. Of course, there are a lot of tools that makes the first stage, the collection of data, way more easy. But the processing and the analysis of that is done manually and usually involves just the browser. Let's start reviewing these different intelligence disciplines. We have, first of all, technical intelligence risks. And in my opinion, technical intelligence is perhaps the most known one or even the most boring one, because we have been doing this before we have called this intelligence. But pretty much we are going to be looking for infrastructure information leaks, vulnerabilities, exploits that can be affecting the infrastructure of the client. Another thing that we will be doing, and this one perhaps is a little bit more new, is checking for domain permutations. So in information leaking, we are going to be checking for which are the open services within the infrastructure. We are going to be checking if there are headers information leaking. So, for example, we have an IIS web server that is leaking the ASP version number and the web server version number. All that kind of stuff is something that the threat actor will be looking for, because it's way easier to know what you are attacking. It's way easier to know the exact version of the software that the target is using to be able to either get exploits or develop exploits or stuff like that. So all these kind of information leaks will give a threat actor the knowledge of the infrastructure they are trying to target. Yeah, subdomain CGN is something else that we do. Sometimes there are a lot of residual domains that are still subdomains that are still working, and some of them might even have be hosting, I don't know, a web server with an old version of the web application. Yeah, apology for the screenshot. Some of them you will see that are censored because they actually belong to some clients of us, but this is the idea. And the first one, the vulnerabilities, we need to understand and we need to know that exploits are everywhere. I'm saying here NDA because it's either 0 days exploit, that means that there are exploits that are not public yet, that are not known. But in general terms, what you are going to be getting is 1 day exploits or known exploits. So it's important to understand that there is lot of ways to attack a service or a server based on all these exploits that can be obtained by just Googling for them. This is, by the way, 0 Day Today, a web page that here in the screenshot, I'm showing only some exploits. For example, the Instagram bypass access that are actually paid. You need to pay to get this, but the page itself has a lot of free exploits as well. So domains permutations. This one is a little bit more interesting. A domain permutation is pretty much a domain that looks very similarly to the original one. There are different types of domain permutations. In the example here, I have subdomains permutations, but it could be like a vowel swap, an addition of a letter or a suppression of a letter, an homoglyph, different type of domains permutations. When I usually check for domain permutations, I make sure that there is an MX record associated to that permutation, because these kinds of domains are mostly used for phishing attacks, for sending spam. So we want to make sure that they at least are running a mail server to be able to do that. Now, in this example I have here, Icon Water, which is a water company in Australia. We have 2 subdomains permutations. And if you check at the name of this, it's iconw.other.com.au. There is absolutely no nonsense in this domain having a good intention. There is no way that this is real or associated to the original domain. This is clearly an impersonation attempt. And if we check a little bit more and we, for example, do a reverse IP lookup for the DNS records, we're going to check, for example, that there are 139 more domains hosting in this same IP address. So that's another thing that is going to raise a flag, because all these domains are a little bit fishy. So another thing that we can do out of this domain permutation is to check for the abuse reports that this IP address has. And you can see here that it's been actively lately, like on September, August of this year. And the categories that this IP address was reported is phishing, email spam, hacking, spoofing. So how you benefit out of this kind of intelligence? Well, you already know that this IP address is not going to have any good intention. So you can already consider this an indicator of compromise. And if you see in your networks that this IP address is attempting any kind of communication, you're already prepared to do something about this because you know that this is a malicious IP address. More things that we can get out of this IP address is more indicator of compromise. As I said before, all this information is available. I'm going to be saying which are the tools and web pages I've been using to find this. But for example, this IP address, we have the associated files. We know that this IP address, the web server, has been dropping or serving different Trojans, different adware. We have the hashes of that of those files to be used as indicator of compromise internally. And going back a second, this bit here, I've used a tool that is called DNS Twist. They also have a web application. So pretty much you run the tool with the original domain name. You set some flags, for example, that you make sure that the domain is actually registered because that's what you care for. And in my case, I usually check that there is an MX record. This reverse IP results is just a Google search. There are a lot of different free services that will provide this information. This one over here is Abuse IPDB. It's another web app. And finally here, this is the all-in-bold indicator of compromised database, also a web app that you can freely access. Moving on. Okay, dark intelligence is the other gathering discipline. Within dark intelligence, we are going to be paying attention to data breaches, dark web markets, underground communities, and threat actors. Let's move to the first one, the data breaches. Data breaches, there are two big categories of data breaches, which is the third-party breaches and exfiltrated data. The third-party breaches are usually when a third party is hacked and the database is leaked. Example of that is the Adobe breach, the LinkedIn breach, the MyFitnessPal breach. All those breaches that are well known are part of these third-party breaches. And this one, the exfiltrated data, is a little bit more new in terms of threat actors' tactics and procedures, because lately, let's say since late last year, early this year, the threat actors, especially ransomware threat actors, are using this second attack vector where they don't only encrypt the data in the target's machine and ask for a ransom, but they also exfiltrate all that data to use it as a threat, right? You don't pay me the ransom, this data will be published in the dark web or will be published in the clear web. You have 7 days. So this is what exfiltrated data is. Data breaches. The email breaches. There are a lot of different services. For example, I'm pretty sure you have heard about Have I Been Pwned, or in this case, in the screenshot here, the hash. So they have a lot of databases. You can just search. In this case, I've been told that this is a very big telecommunication company in Iceland. And you can see that there are a little bit more than 1,000 email breaches. The hashes, Have I Been Pwned, will only tell you, okay, this email address has been breached, and will list which are the database breach that email belongs to. But in the case of the hash, they go a little bit ahead, and they also provide the information that was breached. By the way, the hash And to see this information, you have to pay a subscription. It's not very expensive, but yes, this is not exactly all free. And we can see that this email address was breached in the anti-public compilation, and that the password here has been leaked. Passwords, it could be either the clear text password or the password hash that are usually leaked. So how do we use this information? Well, there are two important things when your email address has been breached. The first one is the password reuse problem, and the second one is the credential stuffing type of attack. So the password reuse is very, very obvious. It's something that probably we all do at some point, but using, for example, using the same password in LinkedIn, which was breached, and the same password, I don't know, in your Facebook account, is considered a huge risk, not because your password is not secure, but because your password might be public. Okay, and an example of this that this comes from one of our clients. We did the data breach, the data breach review. We found a lot of different email breaches belonging to this client, and a lot of them included a password. So we contacted the client and we asked, "Are you okay if we try a credential stuffing attack?" And they say, "Yes, please go ahead." So this screenshot here pretty much shows that we were able to obtain valid VPN credentials for the CTO of the company. The only reason that we were not able to log in the VPN is because they had a strong access policy. But this is a huge risk because we already know, I think it was from MyFitnessPal, the password. We already know that there is a huge password reuse problem here. In the screenshot in the right, you can see the error message that you get when you don't actually have the right password. So like this, I have a lot of examples. I remember another client that the CEO was reusing the password in his Facebook account, in his LinkedIn account, and in his corporate email address. I was able to log in as the CEO just because his password was breached in the past, maybe years ago. I don't remember in what data breach. Now, there is one more thing I want to talk about the breaches and services like the hash and have I been pwned, is that these services here are mainstream. They all have the same databases, but they only have the databases that have been published or of breaches that have been reported. An example of this is, and the pure security breach box. Besides the mainstream databases, we have a huge collection of smaller breaches that are totaling probably like 5 more extra terabytes of data breaches, and we keep that inside of infrastructure. And an example of this is we had a client from the government that had an account breach. Personal information was disclosed, but they were not able to find which was the breach. As you can see here in the left, there are 0 results for that email address. In the right, which is have I been pwned, reports that nothing happened to that email address. But then in this bit under here, we can see that in the non-mainstream database breaches, we get a hit. And in fact, this email address was breached and these services were not reporting it because this breach happened in January 2019 in a very small Australian company. The breach consisted only, I think it was around 2,000 emails. So it's not mainstream enough for the hash of have I been pwned to be included in their databases. But we still need to understand that there is what Have I Been Pwned is offering is probably, I don't know, around 10 or 20% of the whole amount of data breaches that are never public or that are only circulating in the dark web markets or in underground forums like Raid forums, and that you have to pay for them. That's also, it's not that easy to get those databases for free. Moving on, we are going to be talking a little bit about this exfiltrated data by the threat actors. As I was mentioning before, the threat actors are using this second attack vector where they steal the data and threaten to release them if the ransom is not paid. All these threat actors like Ragnar, Netwalker, Nephilim, Maze have their own dark web blogs where they put all this. For example, we have the Toll group that happened at the beginning of this year, and we have several gigabytes of data belonging to the leaked because they didn't pay the ransom. So checking those threat actor chain blocks is quite important when we are doing intelligence. This is a case study of an intelligence job that we did a few months back, because intelligence can also be used after an incident happened. Pretty much, we had this client that was attacked by Netwalker, the ransomware, and yes, the information was their data was exfiltrated. So they contacted us and well, they asked, what can we do? So that's how we started with the intelligence. The first thing was identifying the threat actor, which that was easy because each threat actor will leave a different README file, or the files are encrypted in different ways with different file name extension and stuff like that. So we identified that the threat actor was Netwalker, and the next step was checking in their blog if there was anything about our client, and we found out here that yes, in fact, the threat actor was threatening to publish the data belonging to the client. Here we can see that when they posted this, they gave 7 days to the client to do this, and they added this countdown. This is 33 minutes before the leak occurred. So from there, what we did is to analyze the rest of the threat actor blog and check what was their past behavior, checking what they did with that data once the countdown timer hit 0, where they posted it, how they posted it, for how long they posted it, and analyzing all this past behavior gave us a pretty confident idea that the data was going to be posted, was going to be leaked, and it also gave us the idea on which file sharing they were going to be using to post this data. Having all this intelligence conducted, we came back to the client, we explained all these things, and we helped them monitor the dark web chain blog, and the client prepared some takedown notices because the file hosting, drop me files, it was a little bit tricky. It's a very shady file sharing services hosted in Russia, and a lot of threat actors are using it because it's quite anonymous. So having all this, we had one team from the client and one team from our side sitting in front of our computing, waiting for the publication data, for the date. And once this countdown timer hit 0, as we predicted, the data was posted in drop me files. As soon as it was posted, the client sent, I think, 2 messages requesting the takedown, 1 message in English and 1 message in Russian. And it took around 22 minutes for drop me file to take down the file. If you check here in the screenshot, you will notice that this counter here, it had 3 downloads. 2 of these downloads were from the client's teams, checking what was leaked. And unfortunately, we don't know who downloaded, who was the third download. One assumption could be that the same threat actor downloaded it just to check the link was working. So I'm going to say that even when the company was hacked, the data was stolen, intelligence was able to provide them a post-incident way of dealing. And from my perspective, that they only got 3 downloads of their data is a huge win, because these same threat actors have other companies that didn't do any kind of post-incident intelligence, and their data has been downloaded thousands of times. So this is how intelligence can help you in front of an incident. Moving on, we have the dark web markets and forums and underground forums. In the left here, one thing about the dark web is that we don't know how big it is. Technically, we can't really know the extent of it. So even when anyone can access the dark web, it takes time to understand which are the dark web markets that are useful, where to find this information. And it can be done manually. You will require to spend a lot of time researching in the dark web, which are the better places. So in our case, how we get this information, we have a third-party dark web provider, which feeds us with dark web data. And that data is used to conduct our processing and analysis. So that's how we get the dark web data. In the left here, we found in a dark web market some threat actor called Ausprite that was, for example, selling Australia utility bill packs. This was a counterfeit utility bills that are used perfect for use for the following: stealing someone's identity, using a supplementary information, etc. So inside this utility bill pack, we found out that more than one of our clients were involved in here. So this kind of intelligence, knowing that there is someone counterfeiting their bills, is really important. Over here, this was in a carding forum on the dark web, and we found this threat actor that was reselling transfers, something like that. The thing is that it was affecting 2 of our clients because some of the accounts belong to them. The dark web is not only in the browser. There is a huge dark web, darknet community in Telegram. We have those Telegram groups are usually public if you know the group name, and there are also a number of Telegram groups that is invite based. You have to get invite, but the kind of information that goes around in Telegram groups is all referred, or mostly all referred to money and cash out and carding and credit cards. So that's the kind of thing that you are going to be able to find in Telegram. And then you have underground communities and threat actors, because there is a wrong assumption that the threat actors are all in the dark web. And it's not like that. The threat actors are mostly in the underground. This is a clear web forum that anyone can register. It's an underground forum, but it's still not in the dark web. And when we were doing the the Intel assessment for the client that got hacked by NetWalker, we found this, which is pretty much NetWalker threat actor recruiting for new members. Something interesting about this post, as the NetWalker was only interested in people that spoke Russian, and they didn't want any affiliate that spoke English. So this gives you a little bit the idea of where is the geographical location of this threat actor group. Okay. So next is the open source intelligence gathering discipline. We are going to be using open source to discover a number of different things in technical forums, in pastebin sites, in repositories like GitHub, and also in general forums, even like Reddit. This belongs to another client of us, but all these are posted in the forum Stack Overflow. What happened here is that the developer, one of the client's developer, had a few questions, technical questions, and well, he did post these questions in Stack Overflow, but unfortunately he leaked also a lot of internal information belonging to the client that could be really, really dangerous, and a threat actor could really use that. In the example here, well, it's grayed out, but they were posting internal infrastructure information. Here, all these posts are made by the same person. Here, the developer was posting the internal database structure, part of it, and under here, the developer was posting a result, a select query result of that database that include some of their clients with their user numbers and stuff like that. So what I mean with here is there was obviously not a malicious intent from the developer to be publishing all these things, but it's required a huge security awareness on why these kind of things are so dangerous. And then again, this was posted in Stack Overflow, and the only thing that I had to do is to search for the client name in Stack Overflow, and I started getting all these code snippets and information leaks from that forum. Another example, this comes is very similar to the one before. This comes from Reddit. It was an initial, it was the complete leak of a PS script that included, let me check if no, not yet. That included a password. This was redirected after it was posted, and included the domain, the domain information about the client. And there was a problem with this because we reported this to the client. And yes, the original poster went to Reddit and removed all that information. But the problem is that the forums, public forums like Reddit, have a cache. There are several third parties that will cache everything that is posted in Reddit. So even when the developer removed this from Reddit, this was still available in several other third parties. And this was quite bad also. So another thing that we can do with open source intelligence is attempting to identify a threat actor. And this is another example in something that we worked on last year. So we have this client that they got hacked, and their entire internal infrastructure was used to mine cryptocurrency. In every single device inside their internal infrastructure, there was this process running, miner gate, as we can show here, And yeah, the whole company was being used by a threat actor to mine cryptocurrency. Now, the only information that we have here is this email address, because as you can assume that if you are going to be mining cryptocurrency, that mining have to go somewhere. So in this case, all the mining was going to this email address. So we started conducting our analysis out of this piece of information that we had there, the email address. However, if we search for that email address in Google, which is something that the first thing that you would do, you will see that we didn't have any match. It's like the email address was just created for this purpose and nothing else. So it was not part of any known data breaches. There was no mentions of it anywhere. So it was really, really hard to understand or to start searching for a threat actor. However, let's move a little bit more. And what we attempted to do here is to recover the account using Google. If you do it to attempt to recover the password, you will fetch the partial recovery information that is linked to this email address. In this case, we have a phone number that ended in 88 and a partial secondary email address that starts with right. So from here, we can assume that the threat actor is someone named probably Ryan or something like that. So the next step from here was understanding what this Sierra Reach REST involved. And it turns out that searching the terms separately, we found out a wrestling team belonging to Sierra Reach, which is a high school in the West Coast in the US. So from there, I went to Facebook. I checked the high school page, and I started reading every single post, every single like, everything that was related to that high school. And I found something. I simply found a like by Ryan Russell. As I said, I was assuming that our threat actor might be named Ryan. So when I saw that, it caught my attention. Sierra Ridge, the high school, Ryan Russell. I checked her profile. There was nothing much interesting, but I needed more. I needed more information to understand if there was any kind of link between the threat actor and this Ryan Russell. So I proceeded to find. One more thing I forget here. Ryan Russell, if you check the character number, doesn't fit here. It's shorter, I believe. But if you use her maiden name, the character count fits exactly with this secondary email address that the threat actor had linked in there. So that was something else that caught my attention. Next thing was to find Ryan Russell's phone number. This is also just a Google search. There are plenty of services that will provide this. And as we can see in this screenshot, we have a phone number, and we had a phone number that ended in 88. The next step for that, was to attempt to recover the threat actor email using the phone number that we just got belonging to Ryan Russell. And as you can see here, it was valid. The text message with the 6-digit verification code was just sent to this phone number. So from there is, of course, no way we can assure that this person is the threat actor, but we can assure that there is a link. Maybe this person was hacked. Maybe her phone was stolen. there are a lot of maybes, but something very important, the lesson learned from intelligence here is that there is a link. And even when you get almost none data from the collection stage, and that data is not very obvious, there will be always a way to find more information to conduct the intelligence analysis at this case. Okay, moving on. So moving on, yeah, social media intelligence. When we are doing social media intelligence, we are going to be looking for impersonations, for leak information again, and thirdly, we are going to be looking for reputation damage. Reputation damage for a company can be as bad as a technical risk. So the first one, we're going to be talking about social media impersonations. We have in this screen here an employee for one of our clients that in his personal information he had this Twitter account linked, but apparently this Twitter account was old enough that he was not longer using it. And if we follow this Twitter account, we find this, which is a lousy impersonation attempt, but this is still an impersonation attempt. We have this Twitter account that is using the Twitter handle that this employee had listed. And by the way, this is a financial company. And look at the web page that this impersonator is linking. This was a scam website, that's of course, right? So it's very important in social media to have control over your handles. For example, if this person no longer wanted to use this handle, I would not just change it, but instead I would create a secondary account and leave this without use, but leave it under the original owner control. Never just give away handles that at some point belong to you, especially in social media like LinkedIn, that it should be very corporate oriented. Yeah, this one is another one. In the right here, we have the real LinkedIn profile of the CEO of a company in Australia. And in the left one here, we have clearly an impersonation attempt because the name was the same, the company was the same, everything was the same, but it did not belong to the same person. So I'm going to be talking about, yeah, probably now I'm going to be talking about LinkedIn and this kind of impersonations. Right now, there is a huge ongoing campaign that is conducted by Lazarus Group. Lazarus Group is a state-sponsored threat actor from North Korea. It has been active probably since 2013, 2014. They have been involved in a lot of major cyber threat events, like the Sony hack back in I think it was 2015 or 14, the WannaCry attack in 2017. Microsoft attributed the WannaCry attack to Lazarus Group. So they are very active. And right now, in the last few months, they have been conducting a phishing campaign, a very complex phishing campaign that starts in LinkedIn. What they are doing is to impersonate recruiters from big recruiting firms and contacting their targets and start discussing a job offer. But this is not just a social engineering attack in terms that it's just a chat. Lazarus Group takes weeks of communication with their targets. They will be talking for weeks until the target shows kind of interest in this possible new role. And that's when Lazarus Group will attempt to move outside LinkedIn. So they usually say something like, okay, I'm going to send you some documents about this. Give me your WhatsApp number or give me your personal email address. And after a few weeks, of this social engineering attack ongoing and the target agreeing to that is when, oh, I don't have it here, is when Lazarus Group will send the RAT, the remote access Trojan, embedded in some kind of documents. So beware of LinkedIn, in social media in general, beware of the information that you give away in LinkedIn. Everything, like I'm showing these screenshots, can be used by a threat actor from different ways. For example, in the left, we have this person that is leaking all the technology that the company he works for is using. That gives a threat actor a nice technical understanding of what they could be targeting. And in the right here, maybe not so technical, but we have a full resume disclosed by another LinkedIn user. And this kind of information gives a threat actor the possibility to conduct a way more elaborate social engineering attack as the one that I was mentioning from Lazarus Group that is ongoing. So once again, just please be very careful about what you post in social media. Now, this one also happens, is the leaked information that might happen in social media like Twitter or LinkedIn. And sometimes those leaks hit the news. We have here, for example, Sen Spicer that leaked, I don't know why, passwords twice. In the right here, we have an error, but this is a huge and very important error. We have Equifax that linked in their official, check the blue tick, in their official account, they committed an error and they linked the wrong domain. And someone here replied to them that they got the wrong domain. So why is this important? If I'm a threat actor, I'm going to use a domain permutation technique, and I'm going to be registering this if it's not already registering. And I'm going to use it because Equifax already use it in their official tweet account. So a lot of people might be clicking here and might be redirected to a domain permutated that is impersonating Equifax. So these kind of errors are also quite dangerous in the social media intelligence world. Pictures. This one is another one that is quite common. Pictures with blackboards or signs or desktop pictures that are disclosing internal information as passwords. Be careful also of pictures of your laptop screens, what you have open. All these kind of things are used by threat actors all the time. Finally, Finally, we're going to be talking about the reputational damage that might come from social media. It's not a technical risk, but still is something that needs to be considered. So, for example, we have here in the right this post in Glass. I think it's Glassdoor that is saying that, I don't know, the company has some cult-like things and obsessions, and this was, I think this was in YouTube in a different time, but about the same company and pretty much the same comment, which is horrible culture that made me feel like it was a cult, stuff like that. So what I suggest here to avoid reputational damage is to have someone managing the media communication in the company to actually be replying to all these kind of comments. I have another one here. This is from a Google search. And the company originally didn't put any phone number. So someone, a user, anyone suggested that this was the phone number for this company. Not having control about this kind of results may lead to a potential danger if this user is actually a threat actor and this phone number is actually controlled by him, and there is a phishing attack going on. So in regards of social media, always check your official accounts. always check that you have full control over that and that you don't let any loose ends, let's say, because everything will be used by a threat actor. Oh, that's it. And right on time, I guess, for the questions. If you have any questions, please be sure to contact me. This is my email address. Or if you want to feel close home, we have here our Iceland partner email address that you can be reaching to them, security.is, with any kind of questions about either intelligence or security in general. We are very happy to help. I'm going to stop the presentation. Well, I don't know if anyone has any questions or wants to review something else.
Yeah, so we have thank you for your presentation.
Okay.
It was really good, interesting, informative.
Thank you.
We have a couple of questions.
Okay. Where can I see them?
You should see them in the live Q&A.
Show Q&A. Oh, 8 questions. Sorry if I missed that. Okay.
It's okay. It's better to do them after the presentation.
Okay, let's.
So the first question is that do you recommend companies to buy their domain permissions for risk reduction?
Yes and no. Let me explain. The amount of domain permutations that might exist will depend directly in your domain name. The longer your domain is, the more domain permutations will be. And it's kind of unrealistic to buy all of them from probably an economics perspective. But if you can do it, of course, buy as much as they can, control as much domains permutations you can, because that will have the risk reduced. Now, there is a type of domain permutation that you cannot buy, which is the subdomain permutation, because the top domain already exists and is already owned by someone else. So that domain permutation type is going to be a risk always.
All right. And we have a follow-up question from the same guy that asks if a blacklist with permutations in the email system will mitigate this, as well as allowing for attack auditing in case of targeted phishing attempts.
Yes, absolutely. When we provide a list of domain permutations that are known to be malicious permutations, we always recommend to blacklist those domains within the systems, the email systems, and even the whole network infrastructure. Not just at a domain name level, but also at an IP address level. So not just the domain, but the whole IP address needs to somehow be blacklisted.
Yeah, but the difference between blacklisting and owning it is that it only affects your own company, not your customers or the ones that you are in communications with.
That's a very valid point. You are going to be protecting yourself, but if a permutated domain from your company is contacting one of your clients, the client won't have any kind of protection against that. So buying is still a very good option.
And just to add that I know a lot of security companies have been offering services to watch for permutation domains for your domain. Mm-hmm. So they will look for all newly registrations for domains that are similar to yours. Do you guys offer that service in Pure Security?
Yeah, we do offer that services in Pure Security as part of the intelligence services. We have different intelligence products. We start usually what we call a snapshot, which is a one-time intelligence, just to give the client an overall perspective of what is happening around them in terms of intelligence. And from there, things can go to an intelligence program subscription, which is a 12-year subscription with quarterly reports. And from there, you can add the dark web monitoring.
Okay.
The dark web monitoring that will be a 24/7. Sorry, I'm not sure where my questions went. Sorry. It will be a 24/7 monitoring of the dark web. We have services like the post-incident intelligence, which is when something already happened to one of the clients. So yeah, there are different services. And as I said when I started the presentation, intelligence is based on the direction. So it's pretty much always discussing what are the client's expectations and what they need.
Exactly. Next question is, do you recommend software companies to utilize third-party open IT solutions instead of creating their own user password databases?
Yes, there are very good third-party password management solutions out there. So yeah, I recommend that.
Okay. Then we have Gisli is asking, who is the darknet? Is it more likely government-related hacking? And if so, is there some measurements where the activity is higher when there are threats between countries such as US and China while fighting about Taiwan?
Okay, so the darknet is, the dark web is pretty much the unindexed part of the web. So consider that the dark web is just the web pages that won't appear in a Google result. Just to put it in a very simple term, that would be the dark web. So the reason is a little bit more hidden is because it's not indexed, it's not easily obtainable through Google searches, and that's the dark web. Is not related to government hacking directly. If you ask me, what's the most things that you are going to be seeing in the dark web is dark web markets selling illegal stuff. Get your drugs, your everything in the dark web markets. But it's not really about government hacking. And what was the other part? No, there is not a higher activity in terms of countries, USA versus China or anything like that. Those kind of things are not going to be found in the dark web.
Well, wasn't the dark web originally created by the US Army?
Oh, well. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, there are a lot of things that are said about the dark web. But no, I can't really answer that because I don't know the answer.
Nobody knows.
Exactly.
Who created Bitcoin?
No one knows. Okay.
Next question is that, do you use Maltago to gather information about persons and emails, or do you prefer open source tools?
I do prefer two things, open source tool and in-house tooling that we develop, because that way we can decide exactly on how to do it and what to obtain. So we have a lot of in-house tooling that we use for our intelligence. Say that Maltago is an excellent choice if you want to start doing some intelligence, of course. But open source is still open source.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so Gisli is asking what happened to Ryan. Was the hacker or was he hacked? So we answered that question for him, I think.
I guess I don't know what happened to Ryan because that was up to the client if they wanted to I don't know, start legal actions or communicate with Ryan to know what happened. I guess our job ended giving that intelligence to the client, but I don't know what happened later.
All right. And Gisli asks another question. If he finds the phone number of Bill Gates from Google, he should not call, right?
I'm not sure he will answer, but you can try.
Well, there you have it, Gisli. So there's one more question here.
Yep.
It's anonymous though. Are you for or against publishing corporate emails online, for example, on company websites?
I'm against.
You're against it?
Yeah, because that's an information leak in the terms that a threat actor will just simply gather all those emails and could be really useful to prepare a phishing campaign. But there is another problem. Even if they are not published in their corporate website, it's not that hard. I mean, having your email address, I probably can start deducing all your coworkers' email address based on the email address format and the LinkedIn employees list for your company, right? So I'm against publishing that kind of information in the corporate site, but it's not like it's not easily obtainable other ways.
Yeah, it makes your work, it makes it easier for you to gather them if the company puts them in one place.
Exactly.
Because a lot of employees do use their corporate emails for social media accounts.
Yes.
So you could gather them with a Google search, but why do something difficult when you can do it easy?
Exactly. Regarding that, probably I didn't mention it during the call, but I really not suggest for employees to be using their corporate email accounts for anything that is not corporate, not even third parties application that you might be using within your corporation. For example, in my case, I have 3 email addresses. The one that is from the corporate that I use for everything for business related. I have my personal email address that I use for when money is involved. I have that email address in, I don't know, in PayPal and in my e-banking systems. And then I have a third email address that I use to register to third-party web applications. I don't know, MyFitnessPal or the social media, LinkedIn, stuff like that. So that way, I'm really hoping that PayPal is never breached and the database is not published. But that way, I have some kind of segregation and security between all my accounts. I mean, if the one that I'm using for third party, like MyFitnessPal and all that, gets breaches, I don't mind, because that password, those passwords and that account is absolutely isolated from the one that is managing my money and the one that is managing my work. That's how I do it.
Okay, we have one more question.
Yeah.
Do you recommend using emails that are not user-specific, like u-1234@domain instead of Ryan@domain?
For your personal use would be? If so, yeah. The less specific you can make an email address, that's the better. Of course, if you were asking about your corporate emails, no, I don't suggest that. You need to use your real name and full name.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Okay, I think if we don't have any more questions, as you said earlier, people can send you email if they have any more questions.
Yes. Maybe someone wants the list of the tools and web apps that I have shown during the presentation. I'm happy to provide that through via email.
Okay, great. So eins og þið heyrið, ef einhver vill fá lista við tól og annað sem hann notaði í kynningunni, þá getið þið senda á hann post og hann sendir ykkur lista. So Damian, I would just like to thank you. It was a really good presentation. Highly informative. So just thank you for giving your time and going through this with us.
Okay, no, thank you for the invite, and I really enjoy giving this presentation. So thank you everyone for being here and listening to me.
Beautiful. Þannig ég segi það bara þakka ykkur fyrir því sem komið og við munum draga út eitthvað sem að senda inn spurningar sem vinnur próf. Þannig ég held að þetta sé bara búið hjá okkur í dag og ég þakka bara öllu fyrir að koma. Again, Damian, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a nice weekend.
Same. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.